Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Margolis. I'm the curator of contemporary spaceflight here at the National Air and Space Museum, and I am so delighted to welcome you all to this conversation with Sharon Caples McDougle. Sharon worked as a NASA contractor with Boeing Aerospace and later United Space Alliance on 20 space missions between 1990 and 2004. McDougle is the first Black woman spacesuit technician, crew chief, and manager of the Space Shuttle Crew Escape Equipment Processing Department. Before she joined the space program, she worked as a suit technician for the U.S. Air Force, where she supported the SR-71 Blackbird pilots and U-2 pilots between 1982 and 1990. She retired in 2012 following the conclusion of the Space Shuttle program. Sharon loves sharing her work with audiences around the country, and she is the author of this recent book, Suit Up for Launch with Shay, which you will be signing upstairs at 2 p.m., so we hope you'll join us there. Sharon has received numerous awards throughout her career, including the Silver Snoopy Award, which is one of the highest honors that can be achieved by any aerospace worker. Welcome, Sharon. We are so honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Emily. I am super excited to be here today.
Yay. So I wanted to start at the beginning. When you were growing up in Moss Point, Mississippi, what kinds of things did you do and study? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, while growing up in Moss Point, Mississippi, I had no idea what I wanted to be until I took an airplane ride in the 6th grade, and I saw the flight attendants. And I thought maybe that would be something I'd want to do because they get to travel, they were so helpful and nice and pretty. So I was like, I can do that. But that changed, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I left school, and then I was helping raise my nieces and nephews at a young age. So I thought maybe I would do something, maybe a kindergarten teacher, or maybe something in the child care, since I was so good with kids. But then I let that go, and then I was just kind of stuck, like, I don't know what I want to do. I had made it to junior high, went through junior high, and then when I got to high school, I started panicking until my knight in shining armor, the Air Force recruiter, came and spoke to my class and saved me. And he told us that they would pay for our schooling, we could travel the world, have a great job. And I was like, I wanted to sign up right there in the auditorium that day. I raised my hand. He said, no, you can't sign up today. I was ready to go. Because Moss Point's a small town. Only thing, opportunities were to work at the shipyard or work at the paper mill. And I'm like, I know there's something better out there for me, you know. And so I enlisted on my 18th birthday that February. He came and spoke at our school that November. And so when I turned 18, I went down, took the test, enlisted, and they go by your test scores. So the first job that came up was air traffic controller, and I hadn't graduated yet. And that's back when Reagan was president and air traffic controllers were on strike. And so they were trying to bring in us and get us trained to be air traffic controllers. But my principal said she didn't want to set that precedence and let me graduate early, even though I had the grades. And I'm glad she did. You know, that's like one of those spots that was set up for me to keep me on the path I was meant to be on. So if she would have let me graduate early, I'd have been air traffic controller. So then I became an aerospace physiology specialist because I had some good grades on that test. So that's the job I got, aerospace physiology.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And for the folks in our audience, in person and online, who might not be familiar what an aerospace physiologist technician does, that's really important work. Can you tell us what your primary responsibilities were?
Yes. My primary responsibility is your AFSC, your Air Force Specialty Code. It was my job, was to work with the hypobaric and hyperbaric chambers. That's the altitude chamber and the dive chamber. And in that career, by being stationed at Beale Air Force Base, that was the home of the SR-71 and U-2 reconnaissance aircraft. So the pressure suits were an extra duty, which was on-the-job training. Because what I went to school for at the School of Aerospace Medicine for 6 whole weeks was learn about aerospace physiology and the effects of going to flying on the body. And so that was my real job, working with altitude chambers. But by being stationed at Beale, I got to work with the pressure suits, learned on-the-job training there, which prepared me to work with the space program.
Do you have, what were your favorite parts of that job? Because that's high pressure,
yeah.
No pun intended. You're working with these pressure suits and helping keep people alive. So what did you enjoy most about that work?
The traveling. I enjoyed the traveling the most. We got to travel every 2 months. We would go somewhere in support of the aircraft missions. So I was there 7 years, but I was really there 3.5 years because every 2 months we'd rotate out. The 5 detachments that we rotated to were Kadena Air Base, Mildenhall Air Base, Osan Air Base, I was about to say Seoul, Korea, Osan Air Base in Korea, and one more, Cyprus, Greece. and of course, Florida, which I was so excited to go to Patrick Air Force Base. Not at all. So we would rotate every 2 months in support of that. And they also flew missions from Bill as well. So that was the best part, the traveling. And the job, even though it was a high pressure job, it didn't feel that way because you did it every day. You know, in the Air Force, they flew every day, except weekends sometimes they didn't. And then you get to the space shuttle program, and it's, you know, shuttle go every now and then. You know, it's not every day. So it was, you were just so used to doing it. It was like drinking water and breathing. You didn't feel like it was a high pressure job because you knew what you were doing.
So can you tell us a little bit about making that jump, going from the Air Force to then working on the space shuttle?
Well, it wasn't all rainbows and sparkles. So when I decided to separate the Air Force, I didn't realize that I wasn't really a grown-up yet, because in the military, they take care of you. And you think you're grown, 18, you left the house, but you're still living in the dorm for free. You're eating on base at the chow hall for free. Only thing I was paying for was my car and my car insurance, pretty much. So I had a reality check when I separated from the service. It was very hard. I struggled. I mean, I'm awesome now, but then I was working 3 part-time jobs. At night, I was cleaning an office building, and I was the best office building cleaner they ever had. Yes, I was. So kids, whatever you do, be the best. They had never gotten good comments from people. It's like, man, this office, she's doing a great job. Like, had my Walkman on for y'all back in the day, y'all know. And be cleaning, just cleaning. Happy I had a job. But nobody would hire me full time. So I got all these 4 to 6 hour jobs. My other job was stocking shelves at Office Depot. I would do that for about 4 hours, then I go to my other job, putting price tags on clothes at a department store in a basement. I felt like it was some kind of child labor slave laws going on, but I had to work to do it. And it got me by, so I got like maybe 2 hours of sleep a day. I was dead. And then I couldn't even afford my own place because I didn't have but these little 3-piece of jobs. So thank goodness my friend from the Air Force that I was roommates with, she had an apartment in Sacramento. I slept on her futon, and everybody know futon. The meaning of futon is hard. Yeah. It's hard, but I had a roof over my head for the time being, because I couldn't afford my own place. And so I just happened to be between jobs, laying on the futon, and a friend that was in the Air Force with me, Ray Villalobos, he was already working in Houston with the space program. I had no idea. This is before Google, Facebook, cell phones, all that. He remembered my roommate's name, looked in the phone book and found her number and called the apartment. I just happened to be there. Answered the phone. I was so sleep deprived, I didn't know what was going on. And he said, Sharon, they have an immediate opening doing the exact same thing we did in the Air Force. That wasn't nothing but God. I was like, what? I had been doing this for 6 months, these 3 jobs. I was dying. And he said, call this number right away, because I was still asking questions like, you know, you feel like it ain't real. You're not going to get a job that easy, you know. But kids and grown-ups leave an impression, because I obviously left an impression on him, because he could have called anybody else from our unit that had gotten out, but he thought of me. I called the number, talked to the supervisor. He sponsored me pretty much. He had already prepped them, told them how awesome I was. Well, you know. And then I called it. The supervisor pretty much like, come down whenever you're ready. And I'm looking at the phone like, what? Did I just get hired? I don't have to come out for a panel. I don't have to come out for an interview. Come out whenever you're ready, Miss Caples. That was my maiden name. Girl, you should have saw me like the Beverly Hillbillies, putting all my clothes in the car. I drove from Texas to California by myself. And I started working with the Space Shuttle program July 9th, 1990. Wow. Woo! And it was amazing. 22 years later, the Space Shuttle program ended. I was sad, but, you know, I carried on.
Wow, and you did a lot during the time that you were at NASA. So you suited up astronauts for 20 space missions, but I think what a lot of people here might not realize is you don't just roll up to the shuttle and get in. There are a lot of training missions.
Lots.
So can you tell us about what it was like, how many crews you worked with at any given time, what kind of activities you helped them with?
So being assigned, you would get assigned as a spacesuit technician. You get assigned to several missions at a time. And people tend to think that once the shuttle launches, we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs. You have up to 5 crews in training at one time. So while those guys are up in space, we're down still training all these other crews. So what happens is an astronaut get assigned usually about a year away from the actual launch date. Then we get a technician get assigned to the astronauts. They'll come in for a fit check, where we have to make sure we got all of their sizing right, from their communications cap to their boots to their suit, the gloves. Helmet's one size, so if you got a big head, kids, let your astronaut dreams go. Just let it go. So they get a fit check. We make sure everything's right, nip, tuck, lace, snatched, corseted, and good. So when they start their training, we'll have everything proper to take to the training events. Now, we don't make the suits. The suits are made by David Clark, but they send them to us, and we maintain them. So I'll take it apart, put it back together. I might have to change out a bladder or do a suit controller. All the parts, pieces that's on the suit have to come off and be tested individually, then put back together. So yeah, I was a bad mamma jamma. Y'all know. Y'all know. So they would have approximately 25 to 30 suited training events before they launch, in preparation for their space flight, of course, because we won't be there to help them. So we'll suit them up while they're here on Earth and make it nice and easy for them, explaining everything to them, training them on how everything works. They'll get into the simulator and practice with their suit on, and then they have to practice how to pack everything up and put it in like this little duffel bag, and they have to pack it away until it's time to go back home, come back home. Because once they get to space, it takes about 8.5 minutes to get into space. They take all of that equipment off, all that orange equipment off, pack it up and stow it away until it's time to come back home. So they train, and then you have a practice launch that's called the TCDT, Terminal Countdown Demonstration Test, a few weeks before actual launch. We'll go down and go through all the motions of launch, except actual, launch, and they'll practice egress, like if they would have a fire in the shuttle or something while they're getting ready to take off, and they do like in kindergarten, they'll hold hands and go to the basket and jump into the basket, but they didn't actually slide down the basket to safety, but they just practice different scenarios at that time. And then you go back down for launch, and the actual morning of launch is always exciting, and it's even more exciting when it's a night launch, because I can sleep a little later. And we get them suited up 4 hours prior to launch, and they come in. When you see them walk out waving, out of that building waving, they just left the suit room with us. We just finished suiting and testing them out. You only see them in their suit and their boots. We take their helmet, communication cap, gloves, all that in the harness assembly out to the orbiter prior to that. The helmets are actually in look like a bowling ball bag, and they're sitting on the silver band, which is called the Astro band. And they're sitting already in the band when they walk out and take their pictures and stuff. But the harness assembly is already out in the shuttle at the white room door. So they'll step into that once they get out there and put it on, which will attach to the parachute. So we have to work on all of this equipment year round. And like I said, I'm assigned to several different crew members. And we take care of everything from their pencil, their pen, a hanky, their emesis bag, commonly known as a barf bag. Every little thing, their survival equipment that goes in their pockets, we have to know. We even have a chart that says what goes in what pocket. Because this astronaut might like their pen in their leg pocket. This astronaut might like their pencil up here. So just that particular. We're their personal valets. We were there for anything they needed. And so you try to have the same suit tech with that same person all the time. So you got that comfort level. They trust the suit. They trust the suit tech. So they're feeling good about their equipment. So that should be the last thing they should have to worry about, is that suit.
Incredible. I want to remind everybody here in the audience, if you have questions for Sharon, scan the QR code on the signs, and we can ask your questions directly to her. I do want to, before I get to the next question, I just want to say, as Sharon mentioned, as soon as those astronauts walk out the doors to go to the Astro van, there's a lot of cameras out there taking a lot of pictures, and you may have even seen them, and you're going to see that when we start to go back to the moon with Artemis. But I want all of you to think about the people who are in that suit room, right on the other side of that door, that make sure that they all get there safely. And that's why we're so grateful, Sharon, that you're here to tell your story, not just to represent your incredible career, but all of the spacesuit technicians out there.
Exactly.
So behind every time you see a spacesuit, I want you to think, who was the person behind that making sure it was keeping that astronaut safe? Exactly. So we do have a question coming in from Sarah, a high school student out online. Nice. Thank you for your question, Sarah. Sarah mentions that she's very interested in a career at NASA, but that she's not very good at math. So what advice might you have for students who are interested in doing exciting work like you, but maybe math isn't their strong suit?
Math was never my strong suit either, Sarah, so I feel your pain. I actually walked out of algebra class. I just said, this makes no sense, adding alphabets and numbers together. I couldn't put it together. So It depends on what your career is going to be, Sarah. Like if you're going to be an engineer, math is probably going to be highly important. For the spacesuit technician job, the basic math was good enough. I'm just being honest. I didn't need to know algebra to be a spacesuit technician. I didn't. We work with millimeters of mercury and PSIs and stuff like that, but I didn't need algebra for that. So there are a lot of careers, as the theme of this year's Space Day is curious careers. It's a lot of behind the scenes jobs that don't require a college degree. Mind you, I did go in the Air Force to go to college, but they gave me that amazing job where I was traveling every 2 months, and I kept saying, I'll go next semester, I'll go next semester. I never saw next semester. I never went. But I was very fortunate to still, go up the ladder in my job. But it depends on what your job is. So if you're going to be a rocket scientist or astrophysicist, of course you're going to have to do math, the high-end math that I have no idea how it goes. But I was very lucky that I didn't need it. But hard work and grit and determination goes a long way. It really does. So it depends on who you are, where you are, and who your management is to be able to help you get to where you need to go.
So I want to ask, the work that you were doing required a lot of hard work, grit, and skill. Were there any challenges that you had to overcome at your job that you really are proud of?
It wasn't really a challenge with the job, but it was the pay. When I arrived there, after having 7 years service in the Air Force and knowing the job inside out, and it's like I say, the same job, NASA got the suits from the Air Force. So it's the same suits we had, and they took them in and they made a couple of changes, but nothing major. When I got there, the level of the career was A, B, and C Tech. C Tech being the bottom, the very entry level. And I found out about that. I didn't know about that. I was just happy to get a job over the phone. They could have said $5 an hour. I was just there. I was just happy. Because I know once I got there and they saw my hard work and everything that I would propel up. So I got there and I found out I was a C Tech. And then I found out about this rating, and yeah, I spoke up. I went to the office and I was like, look, you have some people were there from the Air Force that had been in the Air Force for 20 years. And they still started off I'm like, this don't make no sense. We already got all this experience. We're coming in here, hitting the floor, running. We just got to learn their policies and procedures. Why are we starting at the bottom? And because I spoke up, I got moved up to B. And then anybody they brought in from the Air Force started at B. So I was happy, I was proud of making that change. Because nobody was saying nothing. They were like me, just happy to have a job, after the fact. But I was like, this is not right. We already know the job. We're coming in here shining, doing everything, and you want to start us at the bottom? So you have to speak up for yourselves. You really do. Because if I would have just stayed quiet, I might not have made it to manager,
I love that story because it shows not only you're really good at your job, but you're also a good colleague.
Yeah.
You were doing that for yourself and for everybody else, and I think that it's important to be a good human as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Good at whatever you do.
And also with that, Emily, just like the young man spoke up for me and said, hey, I know somebody that would be good for the job, I did that for several other colleagues from the Air Force as well. When I found out they were looking, I told them about them and they were able to come in.
That's incredible.
So pay it forward?
Yeah. Now I wanted to talk, speaking about paying it forward, I know there's somebody special in your life who has been an important part of your career, and you've been an important part of her career. I was wondering if we could put up a photo of Mae Jemison, Dr. Mae Jemison, on the screen.
That's a proud moment.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of suiting her up and what that meant to you?
It was like family. Like my family was going to space. To see the first black woman, I'd have heard the first black woman was going to be going. And mind you, this was set up perfect because I got there in 1990. She got assigned to her mission in 1991. So it was just meant to be. It was just meant to be. Because if I would have got there in 1991, I wouldn't have been assigned to her mission because I would have been too new to their processes. So I heard whispers. I was like, ooh, the first sister getting ready to go to space. I was like, yeah. So I was just waiting like a little pit bull. When they write the names on the board, my supervisor come out and write the crew. They get the crew assignments, and they'll come out, and they have a big board in our department, and they write all the astronaut names, and then he'll write down who he assigned to with astronauts, the technicians. And so he's writing. Mae was at the bottom because she was MS4, Mission Specialist 4. So she was the last name he wrote up there. And I took the marker out of his hand and wrote my name back. And then I was like, I'm going to get fired because I'm only And that was my supervisor. I just snatched it. And he just kind of laughed at me. He's like, I knew you wanted to suit her up. Not that I hadn't made it known, right? I had already told everybody I'm suiting her up, even though I didn't know for sure. And he just, he left me alone. I kept my job, thank God. I didn't want to go back to California. And so the first fit check, and I was the first black technician there. And at the time, I was still the only black technician. And we have a small room that's a fit check room. It's like a good-sized closet. It's a small room. And we get their street sizes, the astronaut street sizes, before they come for their fit check. And so we have like their basic. And so we'll have sizes of the suit and everything laid out that's almost their size. And it's me and a room full of white guys standing there. I don't think she saw me when she first came in because I was kind of back off in the corner. And they directed her to the dressing room to put on her underwear, which are long johns, not regular underwear. And she came out, and I'm standing by the lazy boy chair, and we kind of look at each other. You got to get that look. But I had to be professional and like, you know. Dr. Jillison, my name is. But inside, I'm like, ah! And I explained everything that we were going to do today, walked her through it. And then she sat down, but we were both like cheesing, like, ah! And I helped her put a suit on, and I'm explaining it, and, you know, the pressurizer made everything, did a little adjustments and all that. And at the time, the suits were only made for men, so they were straight up and down. And May had some curves and swerves. So I had to, you know how you do your tight jeans, you lay on the bed, and so I had to lean forward a little bit, let me get this suit down. I got it over her, because it's straight up and down. There's no area, no room for your hips. So I got it over her, so she had to wear a little bigger suit to accommodate her hips, you know. Not that she was big, but it's just a man suit. It's straight up and down. So I just want to make sure, because she had a tiny little waist. I was very envious of her. So we got through the fit check, and we trained together for a whole year. Like I said, I know where everything go in her pockets. I told her this is going to be the last thing. And mind you, I know anybody else could have done a good job, but I wasn't one of the best. And I wanted her to have the best, and I didn't want her to have any worries about, that's going to be the last thing she had to worry about was that suit and that crew escape equipment. You go do everything else you got to do, worry about your experiments and all the other stuff you have to do on the space shuttle. Don't worry about this, I got you. And that's why I wanted to do it. And it was just awesome, awesome. I mean, she was just amazing. I'm sure she's still amazing. But we'd be there talking like two girlfriends, and then somebody will come up and say something, and she'll go into super doctor astronaut mode and be saying words I never even heard. I'm like, who is this woman? I was just blown away by her. And she was so nice, so nice. The nicest. When she landed, okay, I'm going to get off May here in a minute. At landing, we have to be there. And we're on the vehicle waiting for the astronauts to come out. And they're coming out. We got wheelchairs ready, and then some of them leaning on our shoulder. We're walking them to the chair because, you know, they've been in space 10 days. They're a little woozy and all that. Some of them are, you know, throwing up and just feeling bad. And I'm like, where is she? I'm looking. And she come walking out like she just ain't even been to space. I'm like, who is this woman? She walked out just like it didn't affect her at all. Wasn't green around the gills, fresh-faced. Like, did she spritz before she got off the shuttle? What is going on? She looked great. She looked great. And I helped her take her suit off, and we chatted, and we connected a few other times afterwards. But, you know, she did one and done. She's like, I made history. Bye.
Oh my gosh, I love hearing that story. And one thing that really I think is so important to remember is that you have basically one of the highest awards that NASA can give, the Silver Snoopy. And that's an award that's given by astronauts to people that made their mission a success and made it safe. And when we first met and chatted, you described your work as life-sustaining.
Yes,
so can you tell everybody a little bit more about that?
Yes, I was. It is life-sustaining equipment. People see the pretty orange suit, and they think it's just a costume. It's like, no, this is life-sustaining equipment. They need that suit in case they lose cabin pressure aboard the orbiter. If they did lose cabin pressure and they have all of their equipment on, you can't have a glove off or the helmet off. It's not gonna, it's like a hole in the suit. You got, you know, so you have to have everything on. And they don't put it back on until it's time for them to come back home. So if they lose cabin pressure, the suit will automatically sense. It's a dual suit controller, this big silver circular thing right here. It'll sense the cabin pressure change and automatically inflate and keep them safe inside until they get down to a low enough altitude to bail out if necessary. And then if they bail out, it's for hypothermia too. You know, they'll land in the water. They got to get into their life raft and wait for, and which of course they'll be there quickly because all kind of beacons and radios go off if they had to bail out. And it's for hypothermia purposes too. But yeah, it's life-sustaining equipment. And the job actually started back after the Challenger accident. They started looking for other safety measures they can do. Mind you, we all know that if there's an explosion, the suit's not going to save you. But it's for safety purposes.
Thank you. And you know, the tools of the trade for your job include things like sewing needles and screwdrivers, which might look familiar to us. I'm wondering if we can put some of them up on the screen. I want to let you all know that Sharon very generously donated her tools to the Air and Space Museum. And so, she's a history maker, and we're so honored to be able to represent that in the National Collection. So can you tell us a little bit about why are your sewing needles curved?
Because on the suit, when you take the orange cover off, there are some areas that look like corset shoelaces. And if it comes undone, that's how we have to get it back through. We got to lace it in with the needle, a curved needle and a blunt end needle, because you don't want to puncture the bladder of the suit and put a hole in it. Also, on the harness assembly, you have to lace the sleeves to the harness assembly. You have to lace the harness inside the container. The harness assembly it has like life preserver units, like the water wings. It wraps around, and then you have to connect it. You lace it right here to the harness. And then it also has their emergency water packs on the back. It's the size of the harness, but it has 16 water packs, emergency water packs, which is like the size of a Capri Sun drink, but 16 of them are attached. So you have to lace the oxygen bottles into the harness. So that's what these needles are for. They're used for a lot. We use them a lot, like the needles, because I'm not a seamstress by no means, but just lacing things together, that's what we had to use with that for. And the screwdrivers, the ones we were issued was really cheesy, and I didn't like them. So I bought my own Craftsman and put my initials on all of them, so when they walked away from my toolbox, I know I could go find them.
We had a question from the internet about how the spacesuits are tailored. So you mentioned that they were only for men, but also it seemed like they were, it wasn't custom made.
No.
So you had to do a lot of that work as well.
Now, the customized suits, the company that makes the suits is David Clark, and they were in Massachusetts. I don't know if they're still the client or not, but they made the suits. So I did have to go up to David Clark, to their facility, when they made the smaller suits. Not so much just for women, but just a smaller size suit, because we had quite a few smaller astronauts. So they did add some with a little more curvature for some women, but that was way after Dr. Jeminson's flight. And the ACES was roomier. The first suit was the launch entry suit. It was just called an LES. It was partial pressure, so it would squeeze them. And then when they made the ACES, it kind of pushes away. So it was more roomy and more comfortable than the original launch entry suit. Now the anti-G suit, it was kind of like chaps the cowboys wear, and they only wore that for re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. And they would pump it up to pressurize it to about 1.5 psi when they're ready to come home, to keep all of their fluids flowing properly. Because if not, everything could flow to the lower extremities, and they could get woozy or pass out or what have you. And it's their choice. Some people, it didn't bother them, so they didn't wear it. If they wore it, they don't have to pressurize it. It's all their choice.
Thank you. So I want to switch gears a little bit. You have had an incredible career with the Air Force, with the space program, but now you're in a new phase of your career as a public speaker and author. So can you tell us a little bit about why you wanted to write Suit Up for Launch with Shay?
Well, I love kids, first of all, and while I was working with the space program, I always had tons of opportunities to go to community events, schools, and everything, and I actually had the actual suit with me, so you can see all the little light bulbs come on when you're there telling them about the job. And I wanted to make sure they knew about all these background jobs, besides being an astronaut or a rocket scientist, that there are so many opportunities to work with the space program. So I would go out to the schools, tell them about it, and then after that, after I left the space program, I volunteered a lot, reading to daycares and kids at different venues and stuff. And I loved it, and I loved to play dress up. So they just like went hand in hand. And I kept putting off writing my book, because I wanted to write it while I was still working there, but I thought it might be a lot of red tape. They might say, you can't say this, or you can't do that. And so I just put it on the back burner and forgot about it for a long time. And then COVID hit, and we had all kind of authors come out to woodwork, because we had time now, you know. So I went ahead, and it took maybe 30 minutes, if that, for me to write the book, because I've always had it in my head, and it's what I did for almost 30 years, is work with the suit and suiting up people. So I decided to make it a mother-daughter conversation, because my mother was killed in a car accident when I was in the 2nd grade, and I always wished I could have had those kind of moments with her. So I made it, I'm the little kid Shay and the mom. So I'm the mom suit tech, you know, and then I'm little Shay wishing I had my mom. So we decided to play dress up. That's my premise of it. They're going to decide to play dress up, and Shay decides what she wants to dress up as. And she chooses to dress up as an astronaut, of course. And her mom, being a formal suit tech, makes it a teachable moment and tells her all about the layers of the suit and why they wear it and all that good stuff. And so that way kids will still have it, and of course leave my legacy, you know, to let people know about crew escape equipment. It's not just a pretty orange suit. It's actually life-sustaining equipment. And they're wearing a very similar suit on the Artemis missions. They made a few changes, but it's still orange, thank goodness. So yeah, that's why I wrote it. And I love reading the kids, I really do. And then to share my own story, because I was reading everybody else's books and getting everybody all excited. And I was like, you know what? I should be reading my own book. So I went ahead and wrote it and got it out to the public, and here we are.
Wonderful. Well, don't forget at 2 p.m., Sharon will be upstairs signing copies of her books. I hope you'll join us.
Yes.
But I do have one final question to wrap up, and it's on the theme of inspiring the next generation to be able to understand all the different kinds of ways that they can be part of the space industry. So this is a question from Kirsten from Alexandria, Virginia. Hi, Kirsten. Oh, there you are. Hello, right up front. So what advice would you give to a young African-American female aspiring to be a scientist at NASA?
Go for it. Don't let anything hold you back. Don't feel like you don't belong there. Of course, if you're going to be a scientist, you got to get the education. You know, it's not like my job where a lot of it was on-the-job training. But she's going to have to decide what she wants to do, focus on that goal, and always remember that you can always change your mind. You know, you don't have to be married to, okay, I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was in the 2nd grade, so I got to stick to that my whole life. I got to do that. No, and for grown-ups too, you can change your mind. You can switch gears. You know, don't be afraid to fail. Because if you got to try to fail, at least you tried. So just tell her to stick to it. And also reach out to people that's in the field she wants to be in. Because nowadays, you know, got LinkedIn, social media. I have all kind of mentees. Even though I don't have a degree, but I have experience, you know. So they reach out to me, and they may be in, like, they want to design the suit. I was like, I didn't design it, but I can still give you some feedback, you know. And they're just excited to see somebody that actually answered them. And you know, the folks in the business, we love to talk about us, too. So contact me. I'll talk your ear off. But I have several mentees from different countries even that hit me up through LinkedIn. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, so reach out to somebody. And it helps to know somebody in wherever you want to work, to like shadow them maybe. Or like I said, when I started my job, if I would have looked into requisitions online, it wasn't even called spacesuit technician. The title of the job was electromechanical technician. Who's going to think that's a spacesuit technician? You know, if I didn't have somebody on the inside that called me and told me, hey, this job is open, I would have just scrolled right through that job, you know. So look out for stuff like that too. But that's why it's good to know somebody on the inside, because they can tell you all the little quirks and stuff. I don't know if they did that to weed people out or what was going on, because I thought that was an electrician when they told me that was my title, the official title. I'm like, I don't know how to work on electrical stuff. They're like, no, that's what a spacesuit technician is. Can you call it a spacesuit technician? How about that?
Oh my gosh, Sharon, thank you so much for sharing your day with us, sharing your story with us, and
My
letting
pleasure.
us, you know, shining a light on all the spacesuit technicians out there
Yes,
who
plenty.
come before and who are yet to come, and some of you might be in the audience today. So let's give a big round of applause to Sharon.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, everyone.